that foreign countries, in particular the People's Republic of China, was dumping goods, undercutting the wages of the workers of this factory, and driving this place out of business. They were using cheap labor, sometimes slave labor, to try to steal jobs from the hardworking people of this district and this factory floor. And for my entire life, we had presidents and politicians of both parties who didn't do a single thing to stop it and said, oh, by the way, absolutely, bring those cheap goods into our country. Bring those things that were built by hands of slaves rather than the hands of our own workers. And of course, we knew that when they drove those factories out of business, then they'd come in and jack up the price right after. So what happened for 41 years? We all know the story. The factories closed down. My hometown, this is the story of my hometown, where I grew up in a community that was proud, where people built things, where new homes were being made. And by the time I graduated from high school, the manufacturers were laying people off. Those big, beautiful factories were shuttering their doors. And we never had a political movement that said, enough is enough, until Donald J. Trump and Zach Nunn came along. And you know what we said? The Democrats, every day they will tell you, they will fight against our policies to try to bring back American manufacturing. They will fight against our policies that try to fight back against those people who would dump that stuff into our communities. And you know what we say? We say that our tax policy ought to be pretty simple, and that's exactly what it has been. If you're building right here in Iowa, if you're making something right here in Iowa, if you're working every single day right here in Iowa, you deserve a tax cut, and that's exactly what we delivered with Congressman Nunn. But if you're a foreign country dumping that garbage into our country, if you're trying to undercut the wages of Iowa workers, if you're trying to steal the jobs from Iowa farmers and Iowa manufacturers, you know what you're going to do? You're going to pay a big fat tariff before you bring anything into our country, because we're protecting the jobs of our workers and our people for a change. And that's all this is about. When you hear the Democrats attack the Trump administration's tax policies, that's what they're attacking. They're attacking the policies that make it harder for people to steal your jobs, and they're attacking the policies that give you more money to keep in your own pocket. Now, I talked to, the factory owners just a couple of minutes ago, I should say. And you know what they told me? They told me that the working families tax cuts, the tax cuts made possible by Congressman Nunn, that they meant that their business had a lot more money that they could give to workers and higher bonuses and higher salaries, that they could hire more people, that they could expand and create new jobs that didn't exist before. Isn't it nice to have a government that finally is fighting for you instead of fighting against you? And that's what we're trying to have in Washington, D.C. Now, there is so much I'm proud of, so much that is moving in the right direction. Do you know, when I was going around the campaign trail in 2024, one of the number one things that young people said to me, young Americans in particular, is that they couldn't afford to buy a home. They couldn't afford their rent if that's what they wanted to do. And you know, for the first time we've seen in over 5 years, for 8 months running, we have seen the costs of rent come down in the United States of America. Our young people are starting to get close. They're making progress. They're starting to get to the point where they can finally afford their slice of the American dream. And you know why we did that? And you know how we did it? It's actually not that complicated. A simple principle. American homes ought to belong to American families, not foreign investors, not foreign owners, and not Chinese investors who are buying up our farmland. Again, it's not rocket science. It's a simple principle that if you have a government that fights for you, it can make your life easier. It can make it easier for you to start a business or to work at an amazing job. We didn't do anything that was particularly difficult. We did something that was simple and common sense. And I think that's what defines the Republican Party in Washington right now, is it's simply about common sense. You want to lower the cost of homes for American families? Here's a simple thing. Why don't you stop giving 30 million homes to illegal aliens? Why don't you seal the border and make sure those homes go to American families for a change? That's how you lower the cost of housing. If you want to make it easier for a young American to start a family or to get a good job, stop giving jobs to foreign companies and stop giving jobs to foreign countries and protect the good, well-paying jobs that exist right here in the United States of America, and that's what we did. And here's the final thing. When we talk about standing for you, again, whatever your views on a specific policy, there is maybe no more important issue than how about when you pay your taxes to the federal government. We just had tax day just a couple of weeks ago. How about you have a government that actually takes those resources as what they are, your sweat, your tears, your time away from your family, and protects every single one of those dollars. And that's what we're doing by going after fraud, finally, in the federal government. And let me just give you a couple of examples. We had let fraud become so rampant in this country that people were able to get rich not by creating something amazing, not by employing something, not by building something beautiful with their hands. They were able to get rich by defrauding every single person in this room. And they were taking money that should go to America's low-income families, to America's elderly, to people who are struggling in our communities. They were stealing it out of their pocket and stealing it out of your pocket so they could get rich. Let me give you just a couple of examples. There was a program in suburban Minneapolis. It's actually a national program, but it was taken advantage of in suburban Minneapolis, where what we do is that we make it possible, the American people in their generosity make it possible for the parents of young children who are autistic to get access to after-school services. And I think that's a cool thing because Americans, we take care of one another. But you know what happened? That money wasn't going to the parents of autistic children. That money was going to Somalian fraudsters because somebody figured out in the illegal immigrant community that if they went around and said that all of the children in a particular household had that particular problem, then they could collect a lot of money from the federal government. And so what happened? You paid your